"Where's Papa going with that axe?" said Fern to her mother. As they were setting the table for breakfast,
아빠는 그 도끼를 가지고 어디로 가시나요? 아침 식사를 준비하면서 펀이 어머니에게 말했습니다.
out to the hoghouse, replied Mrs. Arable.
Some pigs were born last night.
돼지우리로 나가봐 에러벌 부인이 어젯밤에 돼지 몇 마리가 태어났다고 대답했어요.
I don't see why he needs an axe, continued Fern, who was only 8.
왜 아빠가 도끼가 필요한지 모르겠습니다. 겨우 8살이었던 펀은 계속했어요.
Well, said her mother, one of the pigs is a runt. It's very small and weak, and it will never amount to anything. So your father has decided to do away with it.
글쎄, 그녀의 어머니는 이렇게 말했어요. 돼지 중에 하나가 왜소하다고, 그것은 아주 작고 약하고 그것은 결코 아무것도 되지 않을 거야. 그래서 아버지께서 없애버리기로 작정하셨습니다.
Do away with it? Shrieked Fern. You mean kill it? Just because it's smaller than the others?
그걸 없애버리신다고요? 펀이 비명을 질렀다 죽인다는 뜻인가요? 단지 다른 것보다 작기 때문에요.
Mrs. Arable put a pitcher of cream on the table. Don't yell, Fern. She said your father is right, the pig would probably die anyway. Fern pushed a chair out of the way and ran outdoors. The grass was wet and the earth smelled of springtime. Fern's sneakers were sopping by the time she caught up with her father. Please didn't kill it, she sobbed. It's unfair. Mr. Arable stopped walking Fern. He said gently, you will have to learn to control yourself. Control myself, yelled Fern. This is a matter of life and death, and you talk about controlling myself. Tears ran down her cheeks and she took hold of the axe and tried to pull it out of her father's hand. Fern, said Mr. Arable, I know more about raising a litter of pigs than you do. A weakling makes trouble. Now run along. But it's unfair, cried Fern. The pig couldn't help being born small, could it? If I had been very small at birth, would you have killed me? Mr. Arable smiled. Certainly not. He said, looking down at his daughter with love. But this is different. The little girl is one thing. A little runty pig is another. I see no difference, replied Fern, still hanging onto the axe. This is the most terrible case of injustice I ever heard of. A queer look came over John Arable's face. He seemed almost ready to cry himself. All right. He said, you go back to the house and I will bring the runt when I come in. I'll let you start it on a bottle, like a baby. Then you'll see what trouble a pig can be. When Mr. Arable returned to the house half an hour later, he carried a carton under his arm. Fern was upstairs changing her sneakers. The kitchen table was set for breakfast and the room smelled of coffee, bacon, damp plaster, and wood smoke from the stove. Put it on her chair, said Mrs. Arable. Mr. Arable set the carton down at Fern's place. Then he walked to the sink and washed his hands and dried them on the roller towel. Fern came slowly down the stairs. Her eyes were red from crying as she approached her chair. The carton wobbled, and there was a scratching noise. Fern looked at her. Was the newborn pig. It was a white one. The morning light shone through its ears, turning them pink. He's yours, said Mr. Arable, saved from an untimely death, and may the good Lord forgive me for this foolishness. Fern couldn't take her eyes off the tiny pig. Oh, she whispered, oh, look at him, he's absolutely perfect.